I've got Chris Jones. Hello, Chris. Welcome to the pod.
Hello.
Thanks very much for coming along. Now,
That's all right. Thanks for daring to have me.
oh, that's all right. No worries. I mean, I've listened to a few of your podcasts. You do all right. What are you talking about? Daring to have you. I like it. By the way, I've got to do. I wasn't expecting it. Massive thanks for mentioning myself on your pod. I know that seems a bit self-serving, but that was very kind of you, mate. Much appreciated.
That's all right. I mean, contrary to common belief, I'm actually all right.
I don't know where you're getting that reputation from. Not at all. But then again, I think we've never actually met face to face. Yeah, everything has been through the last 12 months, 18 months on flipping Zoom and God knows what.
Yeah, you're literally a creation in the Matrix for me.
Yeah. This is not my real face. This is not my real beard. There's nothing here.
Yeah. Yeah, it is bizarre, isn't it? You think a lot of the sort of business links or industry links that I've made recently, it's all been digital. It's not.
Yeah.
Which I suppose is pretty cool when you think about it, that we've got the technology and the means to do that now, that we could just stay in our pajamas. And mind you, I'd say that I've professionally worked out pajamas probably for the last 20 years. So there's not much change there.
Just changing from one set of pajamas to another.
Exactly that. What better way to work?
Oh, yeah. 2 minutes to work, get out of one pajamas, get into another pajamas. So, yeah, for those people who don't know who you are, which I would imagine listening to this are very few, but hey, I like to get a little bit of background on people and where they come from and what they're doing. So I know that this is a very, very standard question, but Chris Jones,
yes,
a bit about yourself, where you come from, what your styles are, kind of what your aspirations were, and kind of how that's led you to what you do today.
Well, I'm from Doncaster, and I like to kick people in the face.
Hey,
that's about it. No. So yeah, as I say, I'm from Doncaster. Grew up there. I lived there for best part of 20 years. Started martial arts training in the 1980s. I'm a product of the Karate Kid era.
Hey, nice.
I saw the film on TV because we didn't go to the cinema. It was too expensive back then. Well, one exception. I was allowed to see Masters of the Universe at the cinema.
Oh, that.
Yeah.
In retrospect, bloody love that film. I'm sorry, I do. Everybody dunks on it, but I bloody love it.
I know. So I saw that, but I saw the Karate Kid on the TV. Actually, I only saw half of it because it was recorded on VHS and the tape ran out. So I didn't see the end for many years afterwards. But I saw the first bit of Karate Kid, and I remember seeing there was a Taekwondo school across the road from me. I didn't know what it was at the time, but I saw people going in these uniforms that looked a little bit like what I saw on the TV, and I'm like, is that what they're doing in there? I want a bit of that. So what I did was I went in. I just used to wait until they'd gone in, and I used to go in with my notepad and sit at the back. And I used to watch the class and write all the things down and go home and practice in the garden. And I got away with that for weeks until the guy
didn't mind you doing that at all.
Well, he noticed. I just thought he hadn't noticed me. And I one day, at one point, he came up and he went, "Do you fancy coming for a class next week instead of sitting at the back making all these notes?" I must look like a right weird little kid. Just sat at the back writing down all these notes and going home and practicing on the trees in the garden.
Yeah, that's a bit strange.
Explains a lot, though, in retrospect, really, doesn't it? So yeah, I did that. I got away with it for ages, and I started with the classes, and I was hooked from that point on, and that was sort of the late 80s. That was in what is now WT Taekwondo, so WTF Taekwondo back then. And then I migrated over to ITF through no other reason than the schools closed, and that was the only one left, which was actually a really interesting turnaround for me because it was under a fantastic instructor, a former world champion by the name of Kim Stones, who, depending on where you're from in martial arts, you'll either know him as Kim Stones, the Taekwondo practitioner, the fighter, or you'll know him as Kim Stones, the guy that was really good at the business element of martial arts. So I kind of got both sides of it. I came into it with the martial arts training thing in mind, and then over time it migrated to the sort of business side of things. And he was one of the first people to really pioneer the idea of full-time schools and doing things professionally and charging monthly, which at the time was like, "Oh, don't do that."
Well, yeah, this is it. There's a stigma around martial arts about how you don't, or there used to be. It's not quite so prevalent these days. Was this back in the 80s that he was talking about?
This is the 90s now. So 90s. We're into the 90s. And, I learned a lot through being there. I learned what I liked and what I didn't like about the industry through that period, sort of the late 90s into the early 2000s. And super thankful. I mean, at the time, I wouldn't say I was necessarily super thankful because there was, it wasn't all positive the whole time. I did work there for a short while as well. But looking back on it, those experiences definitely helped me to keep myself, going basically right up until now. I mean, I opened my school, 2002, 2003. So yeah, I must have been doing something right.
Yeah, well, yeah. This is it. We do see a lot of like independent clubs who kind of come and go, which is a real shame. But in my opinion, and you have a lot more experience, we have to adapt to kind of like an attitude of, yes, this is martial arts, but we are running a business. We have to keep the doors open.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I am super thankful for that time that I had working at these schools, either being a student there and sort of taking stuff in, or sitting in on the meetings. I mean, I was only sort of in my late teens, early 20s, and a lot of times I'd be just sitting around in the office, but I would be paying attention. Some of the people that they were bringing over from the States and from other people around in the country as well, and I just sort of sat back and listened.
Takes you back to those days having your pen and pad at the back of the
pretty much
same thing again.
pretty much. But I was probably at the time meant to be doing something like, I don't know, checking stats on attendance, or I was probably meant to be doing something, and I wasn't. I was just taking it. Well, I was, but if he's listening, I'm still terrified of the bloke now. I don't even work for him anymore. I've worked for him for 20 years.
Love it.
But no, it was a really positive experience in that respect, and much more simpler times. The most I had to really, really think about was, had I marked the cards right, and did I turn the lights off?
Keeping the bills down, making sure everything's ticking over.
Yeah. So it's a fantastic time, and very thankful for it, as I already said. And here we are now, 2020, whatever it is.
Oh, crikey. Yeah, we basically missed a year, so just make it up as I don't think it really matters anymore.
Pick a number and assign it. Yeah, and that's where we're at, really.
So one of the things that I wanted to kind of find out from yourself was how did you get into film? Because you also do stunt pieces and all that kind of jazz. Yeah. And how the heck did that start?
For me, it started out. It was as everybody does, well, I'm assuming everybody does. I went through different stages with my training, whereas initially I was hooked on it, the Karate Kid thing, and then I started on that, and then sort of I had a bit of a gap. I got interested in other stuff as you do as a teenager. I won't get into that too much, but I think, and then sort of
Dave Kovar puts it really well. It's like you tend to lose teenagers through the fumes. It's either car fumes or perfumes. And that stuck with me even 10 years now. It's like, yeah, absolutely. So when we get to teens, we've all been there. I stopped.
Yeah, I stopped for a short while, got back into it again. And it was around that sort of time that I discovered film. So, whether it was Van Damme, Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung, it didn't matter. I wasn't interested. I just wanted everything. I think I've actually shown you the state of my shelves in my office.
Yes.
Which I still have everything that I have ever bought from being a kid.
Awesome.
I can't bring myself to get rid of it.
Including all the Star Trek stuff?
Everything.
Or a little bit of it?
Well, the bit, long story. The bits that managed to survive when I moved out. Just to fill everybody in, I got a message from my mum. If you're listening, Mum, thanks for this. What do you want me to do with all this Star Wars stuff? Was a message. I went, Star Wars stuff? Go get rid of that. I'm not bothered about none of that stuff. Yes, she threw away all of my Star Trek collection that I had built up over many a year. She gave stuff to charity shops that was probably worth a small fortune now.
Yeah, this is it.
And anyway, you don't get bitter, do you? So
you might not. I would.
It was my fault, really, for using her garage as a storage facility. I should have sorted my stuff out. Anyway, diversify. Go back at what we were talking about. I forgot now.
How you got into film?
Into film. So yeah, thanks. It was the birth of the internet. It was really early days on the internet, and I suppose I was, messing around on different forums and stuff, and posting videos. Just naivety, really. I was about 20, 21, just, do a kick, upload it, and it took about 25 years to upload a 2-second clip. And there was somebody asking for martial arts performers for a middle of the night, sort of early Jonathan Ross, I think it was, thing. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. I don't care if it's free. So I managed to blag a free couple of hours at the same gym I was talking about that I was working at the time. And we shot some bits for video. And then I don't think it ever got used. And then the same guy then wanted to do something else. So he came back to me again. And then it sort of went from there. So I worked on it really quite hard. I mean, early days, I was quite naive to it all and, young, full of drive and enthusiasm, and kind of went about it the wrong way, I suppose. But, as did most 20-year-olds.
I think that pays off in the end, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You don't know that you're doing something the wrong way. You just crack on and get it done.
Exactly. And, I went from, I remember the first couple of jobs I did were like little camcorder jobs for some guy. And then next thing I knew, I was in the Royal Variety Show. And it was like, I know. Yeah. I went from making some videos for somebody who was, trying to get a few bits sorted to jumping around on a stage in front of the Queen. Nice. So that sort of set things off. So between sort of 2001 and 2008, 7-8, I was really pushing on with that. And I managed to get to work in China and places like that, and so that was really good experience. I'm stood there, like, got Corey Yun action directing right in front of me, and I'm like, wow, this is crazy. Pinch yourself sort of situation. And then my first child was born, and that sort of changed everything. I was not interested in the slightest in going anywhere or doing anything. Around the same sort of time, I got offered two passions there's a few passions, but my main passion is martial arts and motor racing. And I was offered a job in Singapore, doing a piece, stunt doubling for Red Bull's then driver, Mark Webber.
Oh, nice.
And so it was doing martial arts and Formula One all in one.
Passions.
And I turned it down. And it was at that point, it was at that point that I knew it's not my focus. So I stopped. And then the minute you say no to something, you're not available, and it sort of snowballed from there. And then I've been ever since on the trying to jump back onto the treadmill on the highest setting to get back going again. And stuff keeps happening, like this COVID lark and all that.
Oh, crikey, yeah. But
so I'm still doing bits here and there and enjoying it more as a serious hobby these days, to be fair.
Nice. I mean, it takes, with all due respect, fair play to you, it takes a lot of discipline to turn around and say no to something that you would love to do. You have to prioritize. I mean, I have two youngsters myself now, and your priorities change, don't they, when the kids come along?
Yeah, absolutely. I was working on set at the time when my now 12, nearly 13-year-old was born, and long story short, I didn't get back in time for the birth, through no fault of my own, I might add, if the director's listening.
I was going to say,
mate.
Does your other half see it the same way?
She's actually fine about it. Cool. It was really frustrating because the call was silly o'clock in the morning, as it always is, and I'm like, I'm in South London, you're in North Yorkshire.
Oh, crikey.
Oh my goodness. And I remember racing around and got the first tube, got the first train, cost me a fortune, I might add. So I'm jumping on all these trains and things. I'm like, and doing everything I can to get back. And I literally got within sort of 2 miles of the hospital.
Oh.
And he was born. So I turned up, walked in, everything was nice and calm. There was a cup of tea and toast. He was all cleaned up and calm and asleep. And I'm like, this baby lark's not so bad, really, is it? But then again, a few weeks later, I got offered this job, and I thought, well, I've already missed his birth. Do I want to miss the next few weeks of him? Not really. I don't. So it was like a switch flicked in my head, and I went from being focused solely on myself and pushing myself to this little person, and he's now nearly taller than me. So,
crikey, yeah, and I've seen him in action. He's really flipping powerful and fast,
and he stole my Xbox as well.
Like you're going to argue with him these days.
I know.
No, he's awesome, and it's going back to that thing about missing the birth, and taking the time afterwards.
Yeah,
it's I suppose, very easy for people in our position, because we make up our own hours as it is anyway, to
Mm,
kind of like, you know what, I only need a couple of days off and I can jump back on the wagon and carry on with work.
mm.
Is it something that you were ever tempted by, or is it no, resolutely, absolutely not? This is my priority now, and so everything's changing.
I mean, I think some things did change, but with regards to teaching in the school, I think I was back in there again a matter of hours later. It was more the prospect of being out of the country or being further away, like for example, South London. I'm based in North Yorkshire, and that was the elements of it that I wasn't so much interested in anymore. The school itself, at the time it's so interwoven into who I am and what I do that it was baby in the morning, classes in the evening. That's just how I am. I can't even actually remember now. It was so long ago. I can't remember if I did actually take any time off. I think I probably did. I think I was probably forced into it.
It's like you missed the birth. You're taking time off.
I know. God, I sound like a right arse now, don't I?
So I'm sure I can find a way to edit it so you don't.
No, don't even bother. There's no point. No point trying.
Nah, too much work, mate.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks. So yeah, I think I seem to remember I took a little bit of time off and then I went straight back into it again. But I'm trying to think if it changed my outlook or my. I think it probably refocused my mind a little bit into the thinking that I've got to push this now and do it properly.
Yeah.
I think I've always done it properly, but I've sort of always relied on I've made it work so far, so I'll just keep making it work.
Yeah. No, I can appreciate that.
And it, I thought, well, when we just come out the back end of the sort of financial crisis,
which was the 2008 crash.
Yeah, because my son was born 2009, so we just sort of come out. We were starting to come out the back end of that. So I thought, well, now I need to really get knuckle down because I want this to still be around when he's old enough to decide if it's something he wants or not. And we're still not at that point yet, but it's taking his time. But I think it definitely sharpened my focus.
Do you think that do you think that with martial artists, especially those that run their own clubs and schools, there is a habit of getting to a point where it's like, you know what, the money that I make right now is enough and I don't really need to put any more work in, not really anticipating what's coming around the corner. I mean, I'm seeing a little trend here. You have a son, we have a 2008 crash. You have a daughter, we have a 2020 pandemic. You, dear sir, need to stop having children.
Yes, well, you've got no worries there. I'm done. That's it. No more. No.
You and I both. But flipping back to a more serious point, do you think that there tends to be a bit of a trend of that kind of thing happening?
Definitely. I mean, I'm a bit of a funny one. I think everybody knows that by now. But I'm always considering I focus on certain elements of the business really quite strongly. And I think that's just from my upbringing and, that I don't run my business. Just say it as it is. I don't run it as a money-making venture. I run it as a business. And obviously with that comes the aim of making money. Absolutely. Otherwise it can't survive. But I don't go, ooh, right, if I get X amount of little dragons, I can buy a Porsche. Or if I get 275 members exactly, I can do this. I don't run it like that. I've never have and I never will. But we always have a plan A, B, C, D, E, and I've always been like that. And so I've always been able to sort of adapt and switch to change because I've always made sure that we've got reserves in place, that we've got the money there, so that when something goes wrong, we're okay.
These days, it is a big win, isn't it?
Yeah. You've got to think like that, and I think that's just how I've been brought up. I'm a nightmare for it because my wife is like, when are you going to buy some new clothes? Well, I don't need any. They still fit me. And I work in martial arts kit anyway, so why would I care? It's like, yes, but you just literally walk around in the gym hoodie all the time. And I'm one of those types,
You don't need new clothes. You'll be fine.
I'll buy new shoes reluctantly when I get a hole in the end of them. And that's just how I am. And that's sort of transferred over to my business to a certain degree. And don't get me wrong. I'm sure a lot of people have probably seen photos of my school. I like to keep the place a small place, but it's tidy. I think it's important that when somebody walks in, it doesn't smell like sweaty old men and
Yeah.
the wallpaper's peeling off the wall. Now, that's not judging anybody that runs a place like that, because you probably attract the people that like that sort of thing. I don't want to attract people that like smelly people that like, that like stuff, climbing off the walls and, fire extinguisher hanging on by a thread and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So
I'm walking in kind of grunted, like smash people up. Let's go. It's like,
so I like the place to be presentable and it looks nice, but I don't throw money at it for the sake of it. I'm always thinking, well, do I need this? Do I need that? Can I keep that in reserve for a rainy day, so to speak? That's just how I've always been. And thankfully it's stood us in good stead, and it's got us through, 08 and the last 18 months or however long it ends up being.
Yeah. Now, I was going to say, I know that this episode is going to go out in a couple of weeks after it's recorded. But
we might all be stuck in our houses.
Exactly. We might all be stuck back indoors again with things that have literally just dropped on media yesterday and this morning. So that's going to be fun.
Yes.
And it tends to be these smaller. Actually, to be fair, I've even seen bigger clubs that have gone under.
Yeah.
It tends to be the clubs that don't plan for the future and don't run their business as a business. Which how you get to any kind of a size, I will not know. But we, like yourself, we don't run it purely to make a profit. We're always like, right, this we need to make money in this area, this we don't need to, but we always need to make sure that the doors are open tomorrow. And how do we go about doing that?
Yeah. And I think the thing is, and I've always said this, I have no issue with anybody running their school for their motives, their individual. There's nothing wrong with that. If people want to run a martial arts school to be a millionaire, then great, that's fine. I genuinely, I'm not just saying I have no issue with it, it's just that's not my journey. That's not what I'm doing. And that's why I sometimes take a bit of an issue with people that judge on that basis. Oh, well, if you're not turning over this, then you're doing it wrong. Well, that's nice of you to suggest that, but I'm not living your life. I'm not doing this for the same reasons that you're doing it for. I need to be able to.
Sorry, I was going to say, as you mentioned earlier, you changed your focus from the business to the family.
Yeah.
And so everybody's motivations behind running their clubs and schools are going to be different. Absolutely.
Yeah, we've all got the same underlying or basic level of concerns and stuff, priorities that we need to take care of. You've got your rent, you've got your rates, you've got all this. We've all got sort of the basic stuff that we need to cover off. And then it's after that, and everyone's different. And as my focus shifted and changed over the year, I've gone through periods of I want to have 250 members. And so I've done that. And then I've got there and gone, actually, wasn't doing that for the right reasons. I let somebody tell me that's what I wanted.
Yeah.
And I listened to it. And then I thought, didn't want that. I've gone through periods of having 6 or 7 staff members and then none, which is essentially where I'm at the minute. It switches and changes, and I'm all that's just how I am with it. I've had periods where we've had contracts. I'm not ashamed to say that at one point we did do that. We don't do that now. I've had it where we've had a set minimum. You've got to do so many classes a week, and then I've said, well, actually, no, you can do one. So it's always changing.
Yeah, but this is part of the learning process as well. Yeah. I mean, you see this in any other industry. Things change all the time, and if it doesn't work, they go and try something else.
Yeah,
it's just that when martial artists or club owners tend to do it, other clubs start criticizing what they're doing. It's guys, we're just experimenting. It's like we're seeing what works, we're seeing what doesn't.
Yeah. As long as you've got the basics in order and you're taking care of what needs to be taken care of, I don't see an issue with it. Because my end goal keeps changing. I just want to run for the best part a good as school as I can and enjoy it, and be able to pay the mortgage, and then the rest is it is what it is. I mean, the place is set up to go where I want to go with it. If every now and again I want to experiment with, let's see how much we can make, I do that. How many members can we get? I do that. Ultimately, is that going to affect how well, which is a subjective thing, I guess, the place is where it all succeeds? Yeah, it will, but it's not a primary concern. So,
yeah,
it's if it suddenly becomes that, then that's where my focus will go. I just think it's nice. I like the ability to be able to do what I want to do with it and what I feel is right for it, and not be. I have unfortunately fallen into the trap of basically just peer pressure, expectation. I remember at one point I was part of a billing and consultancy group, of which I have generally have no issue with for the most part. But I was with this one particular group, and they used to publish league tables at the end of, so every month you got your little piece of paper in the post, and it showed you where you were opposed to everybody else. And I found myself getting into a competition to beat the school that I used to work at. And I became so focused on that, which some people go, well, yeah, what's wrong with that? But I was doing it to the detriment of actually what I was doing in the school, because I was so focused on, I've got to do X amount of sign-ups, I've got to do this amount of enrollments, I've got to do this amount of down payments, I've got to do this amount of, and I was so focused on that. And then I caught myself and thought, whoa, hang on. No, this is not why you got into this, and this is not why you did. Now, that's what people do. I've got no issue. Again, to reiterate, that's fine. If that's why you're doing it, if you're being honest with yourself,
absolutely.
That's
and competition could be healthy.
Yeah. It's just, it wasn't what I was about, and it wasn't, and it isn't now, and it wasn't what my school was about. And I was starting to attract the wrong type of people. And so I had to just kind of find myself and find what I was about, what I wanted to do with it. And that took a long time, because my head was in such a muddle because of where I was all about. I loved the physical elements, but then I'd come from a background which was very, very financially focused and very, it was just finding the midpoint was really quite tricky. And for argument's sake, I probably still haven't got there 20-something years later.
I was going to say, I'm in a similar process myself, trying to find that midpoint. Now, I'm curious, when you were incredibly focused on obviously what you consider to be the wrong thing for you, which I completely appreciate. Because I've been there too. We used to hold leagues as to how the different coaches were doing inside the same group, and who had the most students, who had the best retention, who was selling the most merchandise, blah 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 blah. Yeah. And again, like you, I've got nothing wrong with that, but it wasn't for me. How did you find that impacted on the rest of your business? Do you felt that your established students could kind of feel that, or did it? Did you kind of, were you able to keep your eye on the retention ball and the recruitment ball and the figures ball? Or did it kind of start to?
I think it was a gradual process, because I'd come from that way of working through these they were incredibly financially successful schools. And I'd sort of come from that. So I just migrated to, okay, I'll open my own school and I'll do that. And then I stayed with the same, billion group and all this. And it was, I think it was when, because I was then I wasn't, like I said earlier, I wasn't just switching off the lights and going home. I was taking all the baggage home too, because I was the instructor, I was the school owner. So I had that element to it. And so I was invested in my students, in all honesty, probably a little bit more than when I was doing it for somebody else. It's not that I didn't care. It's just that it was my job. Yeah. Now it's actually my business. And that it was a very slow process of, I didn't like that I was standing in class, teaching a class, and I was actually looking over at my then girlfriend at the time, who was dealing with all of the program director stuff, and looking out. I'm doing it now, sat down, like it's weird. I was looking over at the desk, focused more on, are they signing up? Yes. Which package are they going for? Then I was the 4-year-old stood in front of me, and I'm like, hang on, no, that's. And it was a very gradual process of, well, I don't like that, so I'll get rid of that, and I don't like that, so I'll get rid of that, and it took a while, and I like to think I've sort of found a way now that works for me. It's just a bit of a hybrid. It's a sort of halfway house, but it wasn't an easy process. It wasn't an easy process at all, and I think I ended up, as I said, early days, ended up attracting a lot of the wrong type of students that are the right fit for me, because I was doing what I thought was expected rather than what was actually right. That makes sense. It's
Yeah.
very difficult to articulate for somebody who's not been. I know, as you said, you've been in that position a little bit, but
For those who've not been there,
yeah, it felt a little. It was a little bit peer pressury. It was a bit like
I think that's a great way of putting it.
I've got a point to prove. I've left this school with a gentle nudge. I've set up myself, and I am going to do better. And it was the wrong way to do it. It was definitely the wrong way to do it. But I was young. I was 21, 22.
We're talking, what, 30 years ago?
Funny man. It may as well be. May as well be. It was right. It was 2002.
This is the last time that Mr. Jones comes on this podcast. Thank you very much, everybody.
Goodbye.
He's not coming back again and say, how old did you say I was?
I tell you what, mate, you must be doing something wrong if you have to have me back on. That much I will say.
Oh, bless you. I'm loving it. Anyway, enough about that. I think you're absolutely right in terms of the peer pressure, because you know the circumstances. Going out and working on your own kind of organization, and you know that when you've had a history with others, is that they're watching everything you're doing. And I don't know about you, but it kind of, the temptation is to recruit anybody who'll pay. It's like, yeah, we're open to everyone.
Yeah.
As opposed to, and I think because this took a lot of practice for myself, and we're good at doing it now. We're like, you know what? Martial arts might not be right for you at this time in your life.
Yeah.
Come back in 6 months, give it another go. Or, come back XYZ, give it another go, that kind of thing. How did you find the transition between kind of like the two mindsets?
Oh, wow. I mean, I struggled with that up until very, very recently, to be honest. To a lesser degree more recently, I'll be honest. But yes, there was that, everybody and anybody that came in through the door. And then, I remember at one point I ended up with this group of students, and I'm just like, oh gosh, oh man, oh dear, what have I done? And I still didn't correct it. Rightly or wrongly, I didn't correct it. But what was really interesting was the pandemic hit. It jumped sidekicked the reset button, because it offered me a really unique opportunity to rebuild the school as I want to, because it trashed everybody's businesses. It really did. But the thing, like as I said before, I came back to, I had those reserves in place, and then we had the government grants and everything else, and so financially we were actually all right, and it offered this really unique opportunity to go, right, how do I want to rebuild this, because I've got the time to afford to do it. So I just started, you were saying about martial arts might not be right for you. And of course, you never say this to people, but sometimes it was just, I just don't like you. You've come in for a couple of trials and I just don't like you. Just don't. And I never used to trust that instinct of this is something. And so now I'm listening to it. And I'm going, right, no, I don't think you're a particularly good fit. We're going to clash. You've already said a few things that have rubbed me up the wrong way. I don't want to think every Tuesday and Thursday you're going to come in and just do my head in for an hour. So I'm going to, unfortunately, say, not right. And that's something that I'm trying not to do too much. But if I've got that little spidey sense tingly thing going, something not right here. I've always never listened to it. And it's always ended up with an issue. And I'm thinking, do you know what? I'm going to start listening to that now, because it's not all about, hey, I can get on Facebook and say, I've signed up 50 members today. Aren't I great? 30 of them I can't stand, but they all paid.
And you're the one who's got to spend all your time with these individuals.
Yeah, because the 10 that are the right. I mean, I said I'm exaggerating the numbers.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we'll get, maybe for myself personally, I'll get maybe one a year if I'm unlucky.
Yeah. Bloody hell, you're doing all right.
I know. I think some of it, and you're much the same these days. I think a lot of it is you tend to attract the people that you want anyway because of the way that you are putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
And working on the extreme, it's like if I get somebody who walks through my doors like, oh, I want to smash people up in XYZ, I'm like, we're not for you. You're not a cultural fit.
Yeah, there is. I mean, there is a lot. I agree with. There is a lot to do with the advertising, the what you're putting out. Absolutely, I do think that plays a part. But I think it's also it's trends as well. I mean, back when I started out with this, there was the UFC, but not as it is now. There was no Bellator. There was nothing. There was none of this going on.
It was almost like an underground kind of thing. It's like, oh, what is this? This brand new little thing that seems to be quite small.
So, the pool of people that we were attracting was very, very different to what it is now. And now, again, there's nothing wrong with any of this at all, but the market is diversified. The amount of different stuff you can pick, and UFC is incredibly popular, and so we tend to end up attracting different people at different times depending on what's happening, what's popular. It's not as simple as it used to be, where it used to be like, oh, it was Power Rangers, then it was Ninja Turtles, then it was Power Rangers again, and then it was Ninja Turtles. It's not. Now you've got Conor McGregor. Now you've got whoever else. And so it's happening with the adults now as well. Then that didn't happen. You didn't have that. You had a few people every now and again fancying themselves as a bit of a Van Damme, but other than that, it. Yeah, now you've got people, teenagers and adults idolizing these different combat stars, whereas before it was always just the kids. You always had to just deal with slightly crazy Billy that thought he was a Red Power Ranger. Which was never a difficulty, and you could ride those trends in a positive way. But with the adults, it's different, And I'm not saying that's a negative. What I'm saying is it plays into the type of people that you come in. I think sometimes people feel, oh, I've got to change my advertising because I'm attracting the wrong people. Well, maybe you do, but maybe it might also just be because somebody's just sparked somebody out in a particularly grotesque way that has now gone viral on social media.
And everybody wants to.
And I want a bit of that.
Yeah.
Hey, look, there's one of them kicky punch schools down the road. They do that. Let's go there. So it might just simply be that, I try not to worry about it too much because I put adverts out and attract so many people of a certain type, and then I run exactly the same ad again, and I've had a different demographic turn up altogether. So I'm not going to sit and try and analyze the advert for 5 hours. It's probably something's happened. It could be completely. There might have been an attack. There might have been a viral video. There might have been something in the news. There might have been. It could be so many different things. So I try not to get too caught up in the analytics side of it, if I'm honest. It is real and it's there, and you need to be aware of your stats, absolutely. But I don't like to get too analytical all the time because you could drive yourself nuts if you're not.
Of course,
careful.
you could. You're staring at your figures all day long. I mean, don't get me wrong. Running my own business, I love my figures, how many students we got, and what the retention rates are, and what's the percentage of people that want to go to competition.
Yeah, totally.
All that jazz. But you just drive yourself mental. I mean, I've got an app on my phone that literally I've got it as a widget, and it shows me how my business is doing minute by minute. It's a live update.
Yeah.
And if you don't check yourself on that, you drive yourself absolutely crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I'm a nightmare for logging into my excellent app called Marshallytics. I'm a nightmare for logging into that and checking that and looking at. Yeah, good for
those
that
of you who would like Marshallytics, sponsored by them. They are freaking awesome. Full disclosure, I also use them. I was recommended to use them by Chris because I was looking for. Sorry, I know we're going on a bit of a tangent, but it is a really, really good system. And I'm one of those people where I'm like, hold on, I got to pay for this. So that, of course you do, but I was like, I don't know, because what I'm doing at the minute, I don't really pay for it. And no, I bit the bullet. I bloody love. Excuse my language. I flipping love it. I think it's a great system. CRM is awesome.
Yeah, so I'm always clicking on that. Let's see how many, and for everything that I've said, this will always be. There's nothing worse than seeing that green line go red when you lose a member. It's like, I don't like that. I don't like it. And being around the block, done this for a very long time, it still winds me up, even though I know I shouldn't let it. They've moved house. That's not your fault. Yeah, but it's still gone red on the bar. And I don't like it.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you.
And I can't help it. I can't help it.
Oh, we're very fortunate. I mean, we get maybe one person leave us every couple of months at this point in time.
Wait till the gas bill comes.
Yeah, exactly. When the gas bills change and Christmas is on the horizon, that might change. But we're very, very fortunate. Our retention is fantastic. And I put that down to my team. But even if somebody's like, oh, so I had it recently. Someone's gone to university, and I know that you've had that with one of your instructors.
Well,
there's nothing I can do about that. But I'm still like, oh man, what's going on?
I know. Yeah, I've always. Well, I used to be really, really bad for it. Oh, why have they gone? What have I done? What's this? And I panicked, but I used to worry about it too much. Whereas now I just accept that people just sometimes have to do something different. Yeah. And with the kids especially, it's not. Unfortunately, it's usually not the kids; it's the parents, and it's increasing. I've noticed over the years it's increasing. Even though we have it in the information packs to get when they join, it says that your kids are going to try and quit. When they do, tell us, because it might be something small. The majority of them don't. The majority of them will email say, "Hey, Billy's not coming anymore." It's like, do you remember the process I talked to you about?
We're prioritizing everything else.
Yeah. Oh, there's nothing worse than those emails when they go, well, he's got something's got to give. Oh, yeah, he's got football on Tuesday and he's got swimming on Wednesday and he's got this and that. So something had to go. And it's like, yeah, you chose the thing that could potentially save his life, but that's okay.
Yeah, you see, I love it. That's exactly like 10, well, even not even 10, 5 years ago. Yeah. I used to tell myself exactly the same thing. I'm like, why are you prioritizing football? Martial arts could save your life. Football, you're going to kick a ball about. And anyway, my opinion on football is great for fitness, not so great on other things, and I'll leave it at that.
Gotta love the old kickball.
Yeah, gotta go. Going to learn how to kick people who are really short. Anyway, I'm going to go into a hole that I do not want to go into. But yeah, plenty of those emails, plenty of those reasons. I'm not going to call them excuses because sometimes I've been there myself. I'm sure you have.
Oh yeah.
You want to try other things, and something's got to give.
Yeah.
But it can be frustrating. I don't tend to dwell on it too much anymore because you just get older, you get wiser to it, don't you?
Absolutely. And there's absolutely. I think it's healthy that when somebody stops training, that you look inside and go, what have I done wrong? Because if you were always to just go, well, everybody else is wrong, it's not me, and you're gonna have a seriously leaky bucket.
Oh, yeah.
Because it might be that your Little Dragons or whatever class you teach it has become a bit stale. It might be that he's scaring the living daylights out of your adult class. It might be. So there's nothing wrong with, well, can I just ask what it was? Then, 99% of the time they don't want to say, but that one that does, they might go, well, yeah, you're a bit full of yourself and you keep talking about it.
And it's like, what? That's fair enough because
yeah,
some of us, we have a habit of talking. You speak to any one of my students and they're like, are we going to have a monologue from Mr. H at the end of his session? They're like, no. I'm getting that habit under wraps. It's usually
that wasn't an accusation, by the way. I was just using it as just sort of a weird stereotype. I thought pick one out. You're saying that you're full of yourself.
No.
Hell, man.
I tend to talk. I don't think I'm full of myself, but I do tend to talk an awful lot. But it's part and parcel of the job. We just have to rein it in. I'm using the royal we here. I'm not saying that
enthusiasm.
Exactly. It's the enthusiasm for the job. I love what we do. But
we do podcasts. We've got to like our own voices to do podcasting. That's just part and parcel of it.
Back in the day, I was like, that's what I sound like. Good God, that's what my students have to listen to. But I just wanted to go back very quickly to the watching why people and when people quit. And I'm very, very conscious of your time, but have you found that it's a good way of finding a correlation? So as an example, one thing I found a long time ago was that I was getting a lot of my newbies quitting. So they would join up and they were still white belts and they'd quit before they went for the next grading, which showed me that there was a problem with how I was treating the new ones. So I was able to change that and obviously retention improved. So if you had experiences like that where you're watching your business has been like, you know what, there's a problem there.
Yeah. So many times. And, sometimes it's a really easy fix. It's very obvious. For example, when I opened my school, I started off, I had kids 7+. I didn't do any of the younger ones. And then I got to the point that, you know what, I'm going to have a go 4 to 6 year olds again. And the reason I didn't do it originally is because I didn't like teaching them. So I just thought, it's my school. I'm not going to bother. And I thought, you know what? Come on, you're missing out here. Let's do it. So I started a 4 to 6-year-old group. Absolutely brilliant bunch of little kids they were. Started off with this small group of 8. Just had the one class while I got settled in with it all again. They all moved up through the ranks, through the ages, blah, blah, blah. Right. Oh, God, you're all doing so good. I'm going to move you all up early. Every single one of them quit within 3 weeks.
Oh,
because I moved them up too early.
Yeah.
And I gave into the peer pressure from parents. I gave in, not peer pressure, but I gave into pressure from that. I go, oh man, Billy's brilliant. He's going to be a black belt by the same time he's, I was like, no. All right. So I moved them up too early, and they all quit. So I learned there. That was a silly move. So I didn't do that again. I've had it with fitness classes where they've worked hard, but I've treated it a little bit too much of as a. I let them have a bit of a general gossip.
Yeah.
And then I've had, why are all these people going? Can I just ask why I live? Yeah, because there's them 4 people, all class. All they do is talk.
Mm-hmm.
And I've come to work, not listen to talking. Okay, right. So yeah, I mean, it's constant. There's always things.
And it tends to be like with our adults groups, because I teach adults only groups, and I've done the whole ladies only kickboxing and stuff in the past before. Is it we want to speak to them on more of an even keel, because we've just spent the last 2, 3, 4 hours teaching kids. And so there is that temptation to be like, oh, I can kind of relax a little bit. It's like you forget that you're still here to do a job.
Yeah. It's like a pressure release valve, isn't it? You're like,
it's exactly right.
You've just had a 4 to 6-year-old group where every single one of them's tried to escape out the fire escape, or they all of them within 30 seconds of each other need the toilet.
Yeah. Oh, crikey.
They've all been. I've got this thing at the minute where I'm getting so many of them. They've been sent into class like literally not dressed. It's
really?
Like, right? Yeah. It's like to the point where I have to say to parents, right, parents, you're paying me to teach your kids, not dress them. I'm spending 25 minutes having to dress them all before we can even start. It's very easy when it comes to the adults to go, I've just had all this happening, and right, and you talk, and then you look at the clock and like, warm-up's just been for 25 minutes.
Yep.
Okay. It's very, very easy to do.
Super easy. We have a very strict rule in our club. It's like, if you're late, or if we've got to do anything that takes away from the beginning of the class, the warm-up is 15 minutes. And if you're talking, that's part of your warm-up.
Yeah.
You are responsible for, obviously this is what we say, but we still take responsibility for it. I just want to make that clear. We'd say, look, you're responsible for how warm and stretched your bodies are.
Yeah.
So if you're talking through your warm-up, big problem there. But yeah, the temptation is funny. I love that they're just not getting dressed. It's like they're just turning up. What?
Yeah. It's
what a weird problem to have.
Yeah, with the crossover suits, they're not tying them, or the belts aren't on. They literally just turn up and just shove their arm out in front of them with the belt in the hand. It's like, wow, the class has started 5 minutes ago, and you've arrived with no belt on and your gi's not tied up. Brilliant.
Okay, so it's a little bit past the time that you agreed, and I really appreciate that. So what I'm going to do, if it's all right with you, to finish off, I've got 3 quick fire questions.
Ooh, do you put music in the background
for the whole
on
thing?
this?
So you ready? They're quick fire, but they're long. That's some of it. That's a cheeky way of saying they're not quick fire at all, but I hope you don't notice.
Go on then.
So the bits that I wanted to cover as well today. So number 1 is, for yourself, given your experience, the major transitions you've made over the years to adapt to different physical and economical. Now, we've touched on this a little bit, but I was specifically thinking about like the 2008 crash and the 2020 COVID, and how you've had to adapt your club over the years to essentially keep the doors open and keep flourishing.
Yeah. Basically, I think I've been operating the school as a never-ending. It's constantly changing and evolving all the time. So I suppose in that respect, I've always been prepped for disasters, because I've never really known what I'm doing. And it's just not being too proud to change things. A financial crash. I immediately offered everybody once-a-week memberships. Oh, you can't do that. Oh, no. Standards and this and that. So no standards to worry about if you've got no students.
That's a good shout.
So I just straight away went once a week. Yo, you come in 3 times a week. You can't afford it. All right, once a week it is. And then we saved so many students through that process. We took a massive hit, but then when things settled down, lots of them then were moved back up to where they were previously. Whereas if I'd let them go, there's a strong possibility out of pride or whatever, they wouldn't have come back. So that was things like that. Just not being worried about getting judged. If you need to switch the page, you go. If that's what you need to do, just bloody do it. And don't worry about if, what's his name up the road with his school. He's going to be on Facebook giving it what for. Just whatever. It's not their school. It's not their life, not their concern. If you need to do what you need to do to survive, do it. And that's it. And don't worry about it.
I flipping love that.
I think basically all I've ever done is if it needs doing, I do it and then deal with it.
There's literally that right there has made this whole podcast like forget everything else. If you got one takeaway for today, what I loved was where you said, do not be too proud to change what you need to change.
Yeah.
I think pride can drive quite a few of us and we don't even realize it. It's I can't do that. It's like, and you said it, nail on. Oh man, absolutely spot on. There's no point in worrying about it because if you haven't got any students, what good is that?
Yeah, exactly. So I am very much now fix it, worry about it. Which a lot of people in business are like, don't know. But sometimes you just have to. Just do it.
Yeah.
And then I'll deal with it. And whatever comes from it. And yeah.
Bloody brilliant. Okay, next one. I asked this to every single person who comes in here for the first time. So if you ever do decide to come on again, don't worry, I won't ask you again. We believe that one of the best ways to learn is through trial and error and making mistakes. So with that in mind, what is the biggest mistake you're happy to talk about that you've learned the most from, either be it in your training or your career or your club or whatever it might be?
Oh, God.
I like to come in with, the soft questions.
It's just with me, there's so many I could pick from. I think probably caring too much about other people's opinions is one of the biggest errors that I've made along the way. That always continues to surface in one form or another. But early days, it was,
wow.
I think I'll be honest with you. I think everybody does to a certain degree. I think even the people that make a living out of telling people that they don't, they do.
I think you're probably right.
I think the ones that shout about it most usually do. The ones that put out the Facebook post telling everybody about how they don't care about everybody else thinks, I think they probably do. I might be wrong, but I'm just, everybody's got a little bit, I think. And for me, early days, as I said, it was more, well, everybody else runs their school like this. Everybody goes to these conferences and seminars. Everybody else does. So I should. And I gave into it all too easy. And because if I don't do it, what they're going to say, what they're going to think, what's this? It's like, no, I don't care anymore. It's not that I don't care. It's more that if I don't think it's right for me and my school, then I'm not going to do it. Just because everybody else is doing it, I'm not going to just comply and do it because
it's not relevant for you.
Well, it's round peg in a square hole. You can jam it and it'll go in, but it's not going to be overly great. And if it goes wrong, you're not going to get it out again.
That's so true.
And I've fallen into that pit far too many times. Early days, anyway. Signing up for programs. Get yourself on this. It's the best thing ever. And I'm looking at it going, oh yeah, look at that. That's brilliant. It's flashy. It's great. It's brilliant. Got 2-3 weeks into it. Oh God, no. Why did I do this? I'm stuck now. I'm signed up for 2 years.
And you've just spent £1,500 or whatever it might be to be on that course.
Yeah. And now I'm very much like, well, that's not right for me or my school. So no, thank you very much.
Fair play. Love it. And last but not least, is there anything that you've got coming up for the future that you'd like people to know about? Because I know that you are working on a few bits and pieces, but don't worry if it's a little bit under wraps at the minute. It's not ready. I just want to know if there's anything coming up that we should be aware about in the life of Chris Jones.
Well, I mean, for the school. Hopefully, it's still here by the time this podcast comes out.
You never know. This will be released in 2 or 3 weeks' time. So we've no idea.
I might have sold it, bought an ice cream van, and moved to somewhere in the south coast by then. So yeah, that's it. No, what have I got coming up? In all seriousness, so I've worked on a production called Rupture with the lead actor. A lot of people know the martial arts circles. A guy called Mark Strange, really nice bloke. So that's I think that's due out sometime early next year. That's going through the whole bit I don't really do, the whole editing, production, business.
It's in post right now.
Stuff, yeah. I see that.
Nice.
That really frustrating bit where every now and again the director will post an image on Instagram, and I'm like, don't do that. Yeah, so that's going through that at the moment. There's a couple of other bits that I'm hopefully going to be working on. Like obviously, do that thing. Can't talk about it.
No, no worries.
That's just how it is.
Like Marvel aren't listening. You can say what
like. The amount of people that fall foul of that sort of thing. But I've got obviously I've got the podcast I'm sort of putting my energy back into again. Really, at the minute, I'm sort of in a holding pattern of focusing on my training, my school, my family, and sort of seeing what comes. To be honest, I'm not going to make up a load of stuff that's not happening. That's sort of where I am with things at the minute. Concentrating on the online stuff again. I think it's just a good insurance policy. Obviously, Matt Chapman, working with him on that.
And I've just a little bit to that because I like to get a little taster before anybody comes on here of stuff that they've got. And I actually went and bought one of your kicking online courses.
Oh, cheers, bud.
It's really good. Just to give you a little bit, but I've been doing martial arts of various things for 20 years. And I don't mean this in a patronizing way, so I apologize if it comes across like that.
I'm not bothered anyway, to be honest.
I don't want listeners thinking that I'm a bit of a dick, really. But even I learned a few bits and pieces about the execution of my kicks. I thought it was really good. Absolutely phenomenal.
Some people geek about space films. Some people geek about trains. Some people geek about football. I geek about kicking people in the face. That's my thing. And I don't mean that in a weird, creepy internet way. I mean that in a genuine, I like the body mechanics, the biomechanical elements. I just really find it interesting. And I've always liked kicking things and people, but it was it was sort of this Marty McFly approach of, somebody told me after I had a knee operation that I wouldn't be able to kick anymore. It's like, pardon, what? You're telling me I can't do something? Okay. And I sort of had to learn everything, not everything again, but I had to change everything because if I kicked in the way I was previously, it was going to destroy my knee within a very short period of time.
So you had to find new mechanics.
I had to find new mechanics. I had to find new ways of training. I went everywhere and tried everything, everything from going to the standard physio, which didn't really push my buttons. I ended up using a program designed to rehab professional basketball players.
Oh, wow.
And it got me really interested in, well, if I've suffered like this, there must be other people out there that have suffered in the same way, that maybe have always. I really like a lot of kicking programs are designed around, hey, look at me doing this cool thing, you can do it too. Whereas what I'm doing with my program is I'm trying to help people that have always struggled, because there are more of those people than the people that watch the YouTube tutorials that aren't tutorials. They're just like, watch this cool thing, now go do it. Okay.
Yeah, no worries. They got no problem with copying.
Yeah, I like to just say, hey, look, I know you've always struggled for the last 20 years with this spin kick, or, this is why. Let's look at it. Let's break it down. These are the points that most people don't bother covering. So let's, and that's not a dig, but it's just the way I found over the years is there's subtle little things that most people will teach techniques from one way that is easy for the people that can do it because the person that can teach can already do it. That the people that can't do it never learn it because they don't understand that very, very basic element. Maybe it's a foot turn, maybe it's a weight placement, whether it could be they just don't understand a head turn or something. Very, very small things. That's what I like. I love those details. I love nothing more than getting somebody in a room that can't do a technique and having them doing it in half an hour. They've not been able to do it for 20 years. Love that. Love it. Love it.
And that comes across in that course as well. The way that you're geeking out on technique in an educational way, I should say.
Well, I had to wind it back.
Yeah, no way.
I've done some Instagram and Facebook posts where I've taken people. I did a guy messaged me once and he said, I'm struggling with my spin back kick, jump spin back kick. I would send me a video. I sent him back, probably it was easily 40 minutes, easily 40 minutes of me just talking and breaking it all down and explaining it and doing it and blah, 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 blah. And then he sent me a video back of him doing it. I'm like, there you go.
Fair play. I would have expected that much detail to go over his head, because there's a thing about, not teaching too much too fast, because people who need it broken down might not be able to remember all of the steps, but 40 minutes later he was doing it.
I had to some people, you have to be able to deliver the detail. If you just matrix style like data dump them in one go, it won't work. But if you break it down it's a combination for me anyway, and I like it's visual as well as describing it. So I'm doing the thing that I'm saying that they're doing or not doing at the same time. It's not just blah 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 blah. And just getting them to repeat certain steps and emphasizing key elements that it could be simple as they're not pushing like with spin kick. I'm not going to get into technique and difference in names of things, but spin hook kick or reverse turning kick or whatever people call it. A lot of times people place a lot of emphasis on the front foot, and the people that tend to struggle with it is because they're not pushing from their rear foot, because the kick comes from the rear foot first. It doesn't come from the front foot. You don't just lift your back foot up and spin on the front foot. You have to push the weight from the rear foot.
That would break the laws of physics.
You have to push into the rotation.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that doesn't, not everybody, but of the people that tend to struggle with it, it's because they're not pushing from the rear foot. They're leaning onto their front foot and trying to rotate.
They're kind of hopping around trying to...
They're literally, they're standing with their feet too close together, they're leaning onto the front foot. And I say, well, take that back foot, put it a bit further back, bend your knees and push from it. And then they're doing it. It's like, well, there you go. It's just, like they're jumping in the car and pressing all the pedals and the car's not going. You've not turned the key.
That's a great way of putting it.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely fabulous. Well, I was going to say Mr. Jones. Every time I want to come to saying Mr. Jones, is like you called me out on it. So that's very, very, very formal. I was being a little bit sarcastic. I was like, Mr. Jones,
I get called.
What's your favourite movie?
Yeah. Or you, talking man.
But no, Chris, a much appreciated. I've had an absolute blast. Thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge and a bit of your history as well. I really appreciate your time.
No problem.
And I'm very aware that we have gone slightly over what.
Yeah, I'm looking at the time now, going, can I get home in that amount of time?
Yeah,
of course I can.
I take full responsibility. Blame it on me. Tell your wife that I am the most unprofessional person you've ever spoken to. It was a complete disaster. Never do it again. But
I've just recorded that all on my phone.
Deeply appreciate it.
Not a problem at all, dude.
In which case, sir, take it easy, and I will speak to you at some point in the future. Thank you very much.
No doubts.